One NHL player cheated his way into the All-Star game, another introduced a secret breakaway move so powerful the league had to ban it. These are the NHL players whose actions on the ice forced rule changes. This list wouldn't be complete without adding one of the most hated players in the entire league, Brad Marchand. A name synonymous with the Boston Bruins, he was never one to shy away from making a statement. He's been seen countless times stomping on people's sticks, flipping off the crowd, and his most recognizable move, the slew foot. However, one of the biggest statements he ever made actually had nothing to do with his actions on the ice, but instead an online rumor. You see, before 2013, many players wore their jerseys tucked into their pants. Some of the biggest names like Alexander Ovechkin, Evgeny Malkin, Patrice Bergeron, Chris Letang, Pavel Datsyuk, and hey, even the great one Wayne Gretzky all went for a jersey tuck which stylistically looked pretty good at the time. This trend carried over to youth hockey where many young players opted to tuck in their jerseys for a cooler aesthetic. Well, this trend came crashing down when the NHL drafted up the no tuck rule. This rule disallowed any players from tucking in their jerseys, and if they did, they would first receive a warning and then a penalty. This meant no side tuck, no front tuck, no full tuck, and the players, well, they did not respond well to this brand new rule. Joffrey Lupul of the Toronto Maple Leafs tweeted, "Who's gonna be the first ref to tell Yager to untuck his jersey? Come on." It was clear players thought this rule change was ridiculous, and looking back, it most definitely was. Although the rule still exists today, it most definitely is not enforced. However, that doesn't answer the question on why it was created and who was responsible. You see, this is where Brad Marchand comes in, as many believe it was Brad who actually campaigned to remove tucked-in jerseys. At the time, Brad Marchand and Ovechkin had a small on-ice feud that led many fans to speculate Brad was advocating for the ban of jersey tucks behind the scenes. This might have been a stretch, but one user on Reddit stated, "I've heard rumors that Brad Marchand and a few others are behind the reason jersey tucks are being banned. The NHL knows that Ovi is a superstar and he'll influence younger players to tuck in their jersey, which isn't what the NHL wants. Brad is petty and understands that advocating for this ban can bring an annoyance against his rival. Classic Brad move." It's never truly been known if Brad was actually responsible for the jersey tuck rule. However, this next rule leaves no question as the culprit was caught live in action. One of the most notorious rule changes in all of hockey and potentially in all of sports is the Sean Avery rule. One of the best things you can do to a goaltender to get them off their game is mess with their minds. It's the reason fans chant an opposing goalie's name when they let in a stinker. Harassing the goalie is commonly known as screening, which is a common tactic where the forward will stand in front of a goaltender, blocking their vision. However, Sean Avery took screening to the next level. On April 13th of 2008, during the first round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs between the New York Rangers and the New Jersey Devils, on a 5-on-3 power play when his team had the two-man advantage, Avery parked himself right in front of Devils' Martin Brodeur. He then proceeded to block his view by waving his arms and stick in front of his face and mimicking Brodeur's every move. Even the play-by-play announcer said he had never seen anything quite like it before.
And look what he was doing in front of Marty Brodeur. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Nothing. He looks like he's leading a marching band down the field. Look at him. It's unbelievable.
New York ended up winning the game, and Brodeur had some words from the media afterwards.
He plays like a guy who wants to succeed. Whether you like him or not, he's an effective player. I don't like him. There's no doubt about it. I don't think anybody who plays against him likes him.
Although what Avery did was not illegal, many people described Avery's actions as unsportsmanlike, with this Reddit user stating Sean Avery is a clown and deserved a penalty for turning that game into the circus. However, Sean had some words of his own after the game was finished.
Well, Marty's a big whiner. He's always been a big whiner, and you just got to play through it and I'm going to be in his face all night.
Following this game, the NHL issued a new rule to cover this situation, and it would be known as the Sean Avery rule. The rule makes it illegal for a player to stand in front of a goalie and wave his or her stick in the netminder's face, and if any player indulged in this behavior, it would result in a 2-minute penalty. The Sean Avery rule involving Martin Brodeur will go down as a historical moment in time where a player forced a rule change, but funnily enough, it's not the only rule change that Martin Brodeur was involved in. Imagine being so skilled at hockey that the NHL quite literally has to make up a rule just to nerf you. Well, this is what happened to Martin Brodeur, who is known as the greatest stick-handling goalie of all time. He was so good, in fact, that the NHL introduced the trapezoid rule during the 2005-2006 season, which aimed to limit the areas where goaltenders could handle the puck behind the net. The area defined by this rule is a trapezoid painted behind each net, and the goaltenders are penalized for playing the puck outside of this area. The reason the NHL created this rule was because of Martin Brodeur's ability to handle the puck and act almost as a third defenseman, creating many offensive opportunities for his team. His skill in trapping the puck behind the goal line, then passing it off to teammates, was viewed as a significant advantage for the Devils, and thus the rule was created. Thankfully, this rule didn't really seem to mess with Brodeur's game, as he consistently put up good save percentages in the years to follow. Martin Brodeur isn't the only person on this list who was so good at a specific skill that they forced the league to ban a move. Mason Raymond, who spent his entire career on Canadian teams along with, well, 4 lousy games on Anaheim, is most known for his fast skating abilities and a pretty respectable career.
Here's Mason Raymond with some speed, scores!
If I'm being honest, this guy was solid and had potential, but injuries really slowed down the trajectory of his career. But what people don't know about Mason Raymond is that he is responsible for a massive change in the ruling of a penalty shot. You see, Mason was notorious for a special move he would display in shootouts called the spinorama. This move was very risky, but provided the audience with an awesome highlight to take home in their memories, and is one of the most spammed moves in the NHL video game. However, the NHL didn't see it that way and created a rule banning the use of any spinorama in shootouts. The NHL argued that the spinorama move often violated the forward motion rule of the puck during a penalty shot or shootout attempt. The decision to ban this move was met with mixed reactions, as this NHL fan stated, "I'm worried how this might hinder future creativity and innovation. There are many great moves involving spins, half spins, or skate dekes, which are all breathtaking when successful. It's a one-on-one. If either side can do it, it's fair and not cheating. If it puts the goalie at any increased risk, okay, I'm against it, just let them play otherwise." Many fans still argue over the validity of this rule, but nothing was more controversial than the last player on this list who forced a rule change backed by every fan in the NHL. In 2016, with the NHL All-Star vote coming up, fans around the world had the ability to make the funniest thing ever happen, and oh boy, did they. The NHL All-Star voting polls were being announced, and your typical names like Ovechkin and Erik Karlsson were being thrown out there. However, there was one name that almost nobody had ever seen before, and that name was John Scott. John Scott, a towering figure at 6'8", was known more for his fists than his finesse on the ice. He had a whopping 11 points across 286 games and had played only one singular game in the 2015-2016 season. You see, there was a campaign that started with 2 journalists from the Yahoo Puck Daddy blog demanding John Scott be selected in the NHL All-Star Draft. These journalists threw his name out there as a joke to highlight the flawed voting system for the All-Star games, and oh man, did it ever work, as John Scott started trending overnight on Twitter with the hashtag #VoteJohnScott being coined. Everyone seemed to enjoy the ridiculous idea of a borderline AHL player being voted #1 in the All-Star. Hell, even John Scott was loving it, stating,
"It'd be cool, you know, it's something I guess every player wants to do is go to the All-Star game. It'd be fun. I know everyone would kind of be watching me keep an eye out for me. But it'd be fun. I wouldn't turn it down. It's one of those things where you get kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Unfortunately, the NHL seem to be the only people not enjoying this hilarious situation at hand. They first tried to pressure John Scott into leaving the All-Star game. However, when John Scott was reluctant, the NHL realized if they kicked him out manually, there would be a massive uproar on social media. So that's why they waited until the next season to implement new restrictions on the All-Star voting system. Players could no longer be voted for if they're assigned to a minor league team, and a whole bunch of other restrictions, ensuring we never get to see a John Scott situation ever again.